guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Lauren, and today we're going to talk about the concept of identity, and specifically identity relating to people who consider themselves to be third culture kids, or people that have traveled a lot as a kid, people who have lived in different places, or people that have, just like me, parents that have different nationalities. So first, let's talk about what a third culture kid actually is. So I have this definition that came from Wikipedia. I'm just going to read it. It's third culture kids or third culture individuals are people who were raised in a culture other than their parents or the culture of their country or nationality, and also lived in a different environment during a significant part of their child development years. So the most common examples of third culture kids are kids that had to move a lot as a kid because of their parents' jobs. They had to move countries. They also potentially are people who were children of the military, so military has to move a lot, obviously, all the time. If you have one or two parents that was born and raised into a country that is different than the country that you were born and raised into, that's considered as a third culture kid as well. And you know, there's this very special question that all of us third culture kids are always so confused about, is when people ask you where you're from, you never really know what to say, and every single time you say where you're from, there's always a follow-up question on that, because I tend to say that I'm from France, but then people immediately pick up on that and they're like, you don't sound French, like what is going on? And you know, it's this very weird thing where you feel like you need to constantly have to explain your identity to people. So I myself am a third culture kid. So I was born and raised in France. My mom is American, my dad is French Armenian. So technically on paper, I'm 50% American, 25% French, and 25% Armenian. I tend to say usually that I'm from France because it's just easier. I don't want to get into my life story as soon as I meet someone. But immediately, as soon as I say that, there's always a follow-up question like, oh, but you don't sound French, or, you know, these kind of things. And I feel like it's, you get used to it eventually, like as someone that has different nationalities and different accents or whatnot. But it's just very interesting because I used to feel so different and feel so weird and so inadequate because of the fact that I was different. I used to really essentially, almost, this is a very vulnerable thing to say, but like I used to essentially almost hate myself for being so different, because I, as a kid, like wanted to fit in so bad with all the other kids at school, in my local schools. And you know, having different cultures and different nationalities isn't necessarily a flex. Obviously it depends where you live. I feel like there's some places where multiculturalism is a much more great thing to embrace and to have. And I feel like now I've finally reached a point in my life where I'm just so happy with the person that I am. I'm like, all the things that I used to hate about myself are things that I absolutely adore about myself today. I love the fact that I'm multifaceted. I love the fact that I can relate to different cultures and to speak different languages, and that I'm able to adapt very easily to new environments as a result, because third culture kids, let's face it, we're always faced with different situations. We always have to adapt. We always have to culture swap? Code switching, that was the word I was looking for. We are pros at that. Let me give you an example if you don't see what I'm talking about. And if you're a third culture kid, you have 100% done that in the past. And this is probably something that you do all the time. So for me, for example, I'm French American, right? When I go to the US and I spend time with my American family, or if I'm even like in a different country and I'm like speaking to American people, I would automatically, it's very unconscious, but I would automatically put on more of an American accent. It's completely unconscious, like I do not do it on purpose. And I would probably adapt more of like American mannerisms, like the way Americans speak, like, you know, I would kind of change who I am a little bit to kind of fit into that ideal. And same for France. So like when I go back to France, when I spend time with French people, I code switch as well. And it's, you know, it's so funny because now that you think about it, it almost seems like acting a little bit. It's like you're acting in a way to fit in, and it's like you're kind of changing a little bit who you are to fit in with these people. And the thing is, like, it may seem like it's acting, but it's technically not, because as a third culture kid, as an individual, you want to be able to relate to the people you're talking to. If you're not a third culture kid, you may think that what I'm saying makes absolutely zero sense, and you may think that I'm very, very weird. But if you're a third culture kid and you relate, like, please let me know, because I think this has always been like a struggle for me. These are things that I definitely used to care about a lot before. So for example, let's say I'm talking to an American person, and this American person knows that my mom is American. I sort of sound American-ish, so they kind of assume that I'm an American. So they would assume that I act and speak and have similar values as an American person. The reality is that I'm not. Like, I am 50% American for sure, but I do not feel American. There's a part of me that feels American. There's some values of the US that I feel very attuned to and that I love about the US, but there's a lot of things about US culture that I just do not relate to, and it's just the way it is, right? So if I were to speak to an American person, it would be very unauthentic of me to act like an American person, like 100%. For yourself, it's like inauthentic, essentially. And kind of also being a little bit of a people pleaser, but that's a whole different topic. Like, I have a video on people pleasing, but anyway, this is just an example of what I mean by code switching. And same for French people, same for France. So if I were to speak to a French person, obviously this is even more extreme because like I was born and raised in France, right? Like, I have zero excuse. I was born and raised in France. I have the French passport. Obviously when I speak French, I do not have any foreign accent whatsoever. I sound very French. I look very French. People love to say that all the time. And I have zero excuse, right? But then when I speak to a French person, they would assume that I sound French, that I have French values, that I act like a French person, I communicate like a French person, but that's just not the case as well, because I may look French, but I am not French. I do not consider myself 100% French. Again, there are some things about French culture that I absolutely adore. I love it so much, but I'm not French. And it's just such a bizarre thing for other people to understand, but it's just the reality. I did a video recently on how to stop losing yourself, and I feel like this is a topic that is just so relatable to third culture kids, because when you're a third culture kid, because you're code switching all the time, you kind of feel like you have multiple identities within you. It's so easy to lose yourself when you're just hanging out with like one specific group of people from like one specific culture or nationality, right? And I feel like this has definitely happened to me many times in the past, where if I was just hanging out with like, I don't know, just Americans or just French people, I would lose the other part of myself, I would, like, for example, I don't know, just give an example. If I were to just like hang out with French people, I would feel like I would lose the sort of fun, optimistic, super like, high energy kind of like side of myself, which is very American, I would say. It's not very French. And if I were to like just hang out with Americans, I would probably lose the more philosophical, more intellectual, more like that side of me as well, if I were to just hang out with Americans. Again, I'm not saying this to shit. I don't want to shit on any nationality whatsoever. These are like kind of stereotypes a little bit, but I also need to get my point across. Yeah, you feel like you kind of have to lose parts of yourself if you want to truly fit in with one specific group of the population. I don't know if that makes sense, but that definitely is something that I used to struggle with a lot. And I do kind of still struggle with it a little bit today, but I feel like because now I have done so much work on myself to really figure out who I am at my core and to accept myself and to accept the fact that I am different. And I will not fit in anywhere. I will not fit in 100% with French people. I will not fit in 100% with American people. But at the end of the day, it's all about your energy, right? If you accept yourself, if you love yourself, no matter who you hang out with, these people are going to accept you too, because you're going to come across as someone that's confident in who you are, and therefore they're going to respect you and they're going to like hang out with you as well. My personality doesn't make sense, but whose personality makes sense anyway, right? My personality does not make any sense whatsoever, and I've learned to accept it, okay? I've accepted it because I have different cultures. I have different parents who've lived in different places, who have very different sets of values, and it's just how I am, and I've learned to accept it. I've learned to love it. I, wouldn't want to be someone that is just one-faceted. I love other people who have these kind of multifaceted personalities as well. And that's why also like third culture kids attract each other like a magnet. Like literally my closest friends are all third culture kids, or like people that have traveled a lot, or people have different nationalities and whatnot, because we really understand each other at the core and we know what it's like. Because what I'm saying right now may not make sense to you if you're someone that has never lived in a different country, or if both of your parents are from the same culture, you may think that I'm speaking gibberish right now. You may think like, what is wrong with this girl? But trust me, like other third culture kids 100% relate to what I'm saying. And I feel like us third culture kids, we are so good at building deep connections with people. We are so good at building relationships with people, because especially if you're someone who has traveled a lot as a kid, had to move places, had to go to different schools and whatnot, like you probably had to make friends, you'd say goodbye, you'd have to make friends again, say goodbye. And these things obviously are hard, and it's something that is very hard to deal with as a kid specifically, like building connections with people and then having to say goodbye, like that hurts a lot. Flip side, it also makes you much better at developing some deep bonds with people really fast, because it's like you don't know how much time you have left with that person, and you just have to make the most out of it essentially. Tomorrow is never a given, you may have to move, you may have to, change countries. So you really learn to really be in the present moment. Also, I feel like third culture kids all share this similar trait of empathy. I've not met a single third culture kid that does not have empathy. It's, when you have different cultures, you obviously, when you're code switching, you have to put yourself in the other culture's shoes to properly relate to them and to, build connections with them. So I honestly think like the deepest people I know, they're all multicultural. Like there's always this aspect of them where there's different countries that is going on, because it's such a beautiful thing, honestly, to be multicultural. It's, I'm not saying this to flex, but it's true. Home for third culture kids is not location based. Again, home is not France for me. Home is not the US for me. It is to a certain extent, yes, because like I have family in both places and I have strong memories in both places, and it is home to a certain extent for sure. But eventually if I spend too much time in one area, I will maybe get itchy feet and will want to travel or something, because it's not truly home. And for me, home is a feeling more than anything else. It's a feeling of being in a place where I can be myself, be the multifaceted side of myself, and being around people who have traveled a lot as well, people that are multicultural as well. That is where I feel most at home. It's not about a place, it's about the people that I'm with. A lot of third culture kids end up being expats as adults because of this sense of rootlessness and wandering that can be just so strong that you have this urge to always move around a lot and to travel. And that's definitely been my case for sure. I mean, I've lived in so many different places and I love that. I love it. And yes, like I don't have this like sense of home, but all the amazing experiences I've had like living abroad have just made me so happy essentially at the end of the day. And because I feel like our brains are just wired so differently as third culture kids, we adapt to new environments super quickly, we're much more flexible, we are open-minded, we deal with miscommunication much better than most people because we're just so used to having to constantly code switch. It makes us very good candidates for living abroad and for successfully living abroad. And this obviously comes with its own sets of issues for sure, because you feel like you get itchy feet super fast and you always want to move around a lot. But it also comes with perks. And at the end of the day, there's no perfect life, you know? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that there's a perfect way to live life. Obviously, we all have, you know, our own journeys, our own, you know, things that we need to work on, etc. And there's no such thing as a perfect life. You know, everyone lives their life a different way. And if for you, traveling and being, you know, in a new place, in a new environment, regularly is the way you want to live your life, there's nothing wrong with that. It makes sense that your brain is not wired the same way as someone that has lived their entire life in one single country and that has just one nationality. That makes sense. So if you're a third culture kid watching this, or someone that's multicultural, that really struggles with, you know, your identity and figuring out who you are, just know that you're not alone, okay? You're not alone. This is something that every single third culture kid struggles with in their life. And you will eventually come to a point where you will eventually learn to love yourself and love every single aspect of yourself, every single nationality you have, every single country you've lived in. You will take with you all of the lessons you've learned from living in those countries, or all of the values that your nationalities bring to you. And that's what makes you an interesting individual. That makes you an amazing person, such an interesting person to spend time with. Do you realize how much of a flex that is? This is the pep talk me coming into play, okay? Because like seriously, I wish that when I was younger, there was someone who would tell me these kind of things, but I spent so much of my childhood being like so ashamed of being different. And I really wish that there was someone that would like literally give me pep talks like this and, tell me that it's a flex to be a third culture kid. I just want you to understand how much of an amazing person you are, how tolerant you are, how sensitive to other people and cultures you are, how diplomatic you are in this increasingly globalized world that we live in. You have so much potential in becoming a leader in whatever you want to do in your life, no matter what you want to do with your career. Like when you look at the traits of what it takes to be a good leader, literally third culture kids tick all of the boxes. All of the boxes. You have so much potential to be so successful in your life. And yes, it's hard right now because you may not relate to the people that you spend time with, but it just gives you that extra motivation to actually be self-aware, to take a very deep look into yourself, to introspect and to know, who am I at my core? And let me tell you that once you've done the work, obviously the work is ongoing, no one really reaches a point in life where they truly know who they are, I think it changes all the time. But once you have a deeper understanding of who you are as a person, what your identity is, you will be so happy about the fact that you are multicultural, that you are a third culture kid, that you had all these experiences in your past that have shaped the person that you are today. And that makes you such an amazing person. So that's about it for this video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a very different one, so I hope it was helpful and insightful. If you liked it, please let me know and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel as well. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.